As I mentioned at the top of the show, Anthony Albanese hasn't been cited today. No fancy photo opportunities after refusing to condemn or even comment yesterday on the International Criminal Court's decision to go after Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's Israel's Prime Minister speaking overnight.
The outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, to seek arrest warrants against the democratically elected leaders of Israel is a moral outrage of historic proportions. It will cast an everlasting mark of shame on the International Court.
Yeah, this is something that Anthony Albanese should have had said something about sensibly yesterday, as Joe Biden did, as Peter Dutton did. Instead, he squibbed it. Liberal Senator Dave Sharma now joins me live from Israel, from Tel Aviv. Good to speak to you, Dave. The first question is, you must have been shocked that Anthony Albanese actually said, I can't comment about this, I've got nothing to say. How would that response have been responded to in Israel?
Oh, people were just astonished, Chris, and I'm astonished. I mean, you know, Joe Biden's managed to find words to express. Justin Trudeau has, the Canadian Prime Minister, the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, any number of world leaders have found it a way to condemn this action and their revulsion of the moral equivalence the ICC is engaged in. For Anthony Albanese to dodge the question entirely, and then for Penny Wong to force the department to put out a statement rather than addressing the issue themselves, it's just complete moral cowardice. They should be taking a position on this. Australians are entitled to know, what does their government think of this? Well,
there's no doubt it's moral cowardice, but tell me about what it is diplomatically. You're a former diplomat. You're a former Australian ambassador to Israel. Our foreign policy as a nation is set by what our foreign minister and our prime minister say. It's their statements and their words that set our foreign policy. Yet on this crucial global issue, our prime minister's ducked for cover and said nothing. As you say, the foreign minister just got the department to put out a statement. We've heard from the energy and climate change minister just saying nothing but backing the ICC, and the treasurer today, Jim Chalmers, at least said something, added on a line about there not being any equivalence between Israel and Hamas. One little slither of common sense in a morass of nothing from our government. I mean, what is the Australian government's position right now?
Well, I think the truth is we don't know, Chris, and it's shocking. I mean, I would make this point. Anthony Albanese tried to hide behind some sort of sub judice rule, like this was a criminal prosecution before a magistrate's court or something, and he was being asked to comment on the guilt of the accused. This is not the case. And we comment on disputes before international tribunals all the time. We did it just a few weeks ago with respect to the ICJ case that South Africa has brought. We do it all the time with respect to disputes before the World Trade Organization. We do it when China makes outlandish claims in UN bodies and the Tribunal for the Law of the Sea about its territorial jurisdiction. This is the core bread and butter of diplomacy. It's setting the rules of the rules-based order that we live in. And absolutely we should be speaking out on this and putting our view. And that's especially true because Australia was a founding member of the International Criminal Court. We were one of the original signatories of the Rome Treaty, the statute that established this court. We have an interest in the court's credibility, and the court has dramatically undermined its credibility and seriousness of purpose with this outlandishly political decision.
Yes, indeed. And the point about the court case not being an excuse to remain silent was made in the next question to Anthony Albanese yesterday when he was asked about the Julian Assange case. And he said the guy should be released. So it's absolute hypocrisy and lies, really, about that issue. Now, while you're in Israel, Dave Sharma, tell us who you're going to be speaking to. And I want to get a sense from you now about Israel's determination to finish the job of eliminating Hamas and retrieving hostages, and whether the international pressure on it is making that more difficult or stealing its resolve.
So, look, I had a meeting with the President of Israel yesterday. I'm seeing the Leader of the Opposition in about an hour's time, a little longer. I'm seeing the National Security Advisor. So I'm seeing people across the political spectrum here in Israel, government and opposition. And I would say that the population and the political class here are very united about two things. Firstly, wanting to recover the hostages and doing everything they can to. But secondly, not allowing Hamas to continue as a governing entity in Gaza. And there is absolute resolve that Hamas needs to be defeated, however long that might take, however difficult that task might be, however much international pressure is brought to bear on it, because the population overwhelmingly knows that they cannot afford to risk living with an entity like that across their border. I mean, just yesterday I was down in the south of Israel where the Nova Music Festival took place. And this is where about 350 young Israelis who are at a music festival, we could all imagine, young Australians at something similar, were slaughtered, hunted down mercilessly. Women were sexually assaulted and raped. Bodies were mutilated. That happened about 5 kilometres from the Gaza Strip. And anyone in Israel here knows, whether you're left or right, whether you believe in a two-state solution or not, there can be no peace ever had with Hamas, and Hamas must be defeated.
Yeah, well said, Dave. Thanks so much for joining us. Safe travels. Dave Sharma, their Liberal Senator, former Australian ambassador to Israel.